VP of Customer Success. We're going to talk to you today at Convergint's Insight Innovation Summit about our new product, VectorFlow. We have two main products in our suite: Workforce Identity Management System, otherwise known as PIAM, and an SOC automation product. And for today, we're really going to talk to you about the PIAM product and how we're trying to revolutionize the physical security PIAM market through some innovation. So we're really happy to be here, and certainly an innovation summit is perfect for our company because this is really our core focus, is how do we innovate. So through the demonstration, I'll go over 4 or 5 slides here, and then we'll go to the demo. But I wanted to at least share up front the kinds of things we'll be demonstrating to you and put some context around them. In terms of VectorFlow, we really are trying to bring the power of AI and data insights to all aspects of the security processes. So what I'm showing here, and we'll see in the demo, is some demo of our identity and access management dashboard. And we have a number of dashboards in the system that are intended to bring the data to life and to present insights around whatever particular aspect the dashboard is representing, and also to provide some actionable criteria for you to act on the data that you're seeing in the dashboard. And I'll go over a couple of these in the demonstration. The next thing we'll show also is our Uberstyle SelfService. And what I mean by Uberstyle is we really are trying to make this very user-friendly, 1- and 2-click operations. And what we'll see here is also some additional data insights in the form of recommendations. So we're all users of applications like LinkedIn and Facebook and that sort of thing, where you can see that things get recommendations get pushed to you, let's say for friends or contacts, or perhaps job openings that meet your criteria. So we're trying to bring that same kind of concept to physical access processes, such as audit tasks or access requests that the system may recommend to you to create based on a particular criteria, either for yourself or for some employees. So we'll show you a couple of real examples of that. Also, what you'll hopefully see in the demo is really a rich set of out-of-the-box features and functionality that are core to a physical security identity access management operation. So we'll show you basically what kind of automation we're able to bring to those processes. So it's not just employee onboarding or bringing your record into HR or in from HR or some identity source, but what are all the steps that are downstream of that process that we can automate on behalf of the end user or the security organization. And through that, we're implementing this through what we call a Playbook Studio. So this is a low-code tool that we use to be able to basically configure the system, and for the end user, system administrator, security analyst to be able to visualize all the things that are happening in the system, and to make modifications to basically meet your business needs. But the key here around the playbooks is really the workflows, as well as implementing automation into those workflows. And then we'll close out with the rest of our design studios, and this is something that we believe differentiates us from other vendors in this marketplace, is really a low-code, no-code platform for you as the customer to be able to take control of your own deployment, extend the application if needed, make modifications if a field needs to be required or not required, or you need to actually build an add-on to a particular application. You can do that yourself without any professional services, saving you time and money. So with that, we'll go into the demonstration. We'll show those four or 5 points I just covered here, and we'll do that through the use of a few real-life scenarios. One onboarding scenario for an employee. One other piece of functionality we wanted to share is the onboarding process for a contractor, and this tends to be a pain point for many companies because there's no authoritative source. So we'll walk you through that set of functionality just to show you some of our out-of-the-box capability. Then again, we'll go on to self-service, and we'll show you some of those data-driven recommendations I was mentioning, and we'll close out with the design studios just to show you, how quick and easy it is to make modifications to the system. Okay, so I'll start out with our identity and access dashboard. Hopefully you can see my screen okay. Let me blow it up just a little bit. So this is one example of a dashboard that we have in the system. There's a number of pre-configured dashboards that come out of the box. And then again, as I mentioned, the Studio Designer, you can actually make changes to this dashboard or any other of the user interfaces through our Design Studio. But out of the box, you would see something like this. So it's identity and access. So what we're showing across the top, and this is true of all the dashboards, are some key metrics about this particular process. In this case, we happen to be sitting on identity, so it's all about identities. How many identities are expiring in 30 days, how many open tasks and requests there are. And I want to draw your attention over to the right side here. So the graph itself is showing, how many identities are, onboarding on a particular day. But these insights over here put a layer on top of the bar graph that really draws your attention to, some meaningful pieces of information in this data set. So for example, what percentage of the workforce is employee versus non-employee? How many identities got processed in from the source? And as you can see over here, we can change the time scale. I might want to trend this over 3 months or 6 months or a year. And then a couple other interesting metrics around the identity onboarding process is what is the mean time to onboard, meaning from the time an HR change is detected, how quick or slowly is that process. So this is something that can also be trended over time. And then similarly, the mean time to offboard, from the time I detect a change from HR, let's say a termination, how long does it take me to process that change, to broadcast the card and the access changes down to the PACS and to get a response back. So these are a couple of critical metrics relative to identity and access. In terms of, let's say, another dashboard, I'll show you another example here. This is a request dashboard. So this is all about the request coming into and being processed by the system. So similarly to the identity dashboard, you can see your key insights over here, how many new requests came in the last 1 month. So basically you processed 653 changes. And then similarly down here, these mean time metrics. So how long does it take to approve an access request or a card request? How long, what's the processing time? And you can see this is 2.9 hours for the data set that we have. So if I were to look at a classic PIM system, this would probably be, a full day or 2 or 3 days, depending on the access area. And we're able to drive these times down through the use of the recommendations, as I mentioned. And then recommendation accuracy for the data insights that we're providing to end users. How often do they accept our recommendations? So this is a pretty high quality metric in terms of faith that the data that we're pushing to the end user is in fact being accepted. Okay, so that covers identity and access dashboards. I'm just going to show one other dashboard just very quickly here, and this is something actually that applies here in California around the COVID spread and return to work, and that is the obligation for the company to notify employees if they've been in contact with anybody that has been had a positive diagnosis, or in California here, we also have to notify the employer if it's a contractor. So basically, we're able to leverage the data to identify if somebody was affected, when were they affected, and who maybe was in the building the same day, the same hour, and to make those proactive notifications. This is a new compliance requirement here. Okay, so I'm going to move now to more of a classic PIM scenario, and we'll go through, in this case, a new employee, a new hire, and given the time, we won't go through the whole process, but let me talk you through how this would work from an HR onboarding perspective. So in this case, let's say we have an integration with HR for employees. And in the case of HR, we're basically getting all of the data in a single event, a new hire event. Let's say Sandra Jones is our new hire. She's an employee. We're picking up all the contact details, even her photo if it came in from HR. And the automation or the playbook associated with this would be, we're not just updating the record or creating a record based on that event, but we're doing a number of things in an automated way. So for example, let's say my policy here is as soon as I detect or playbook rather, as soon as I detect a new hire, I'm going to create a card request for that person. That will save the badge office a little bit of time. The only thing they have to do is enter the card number. I'm also going to create default access for that person based on their job location. So you can see that these things are happening automatically. The system is performing these actions on my behalf. as well as things like training. Let's say I've got a corporate safety induction training that's required for all new employees. So we stub that record up in pending status. We send the person an email saying, welcome to, Acme Corporation in this case, and here's the safety training you have to take and by when. Similarly, if you have to require a document, we could stub up, the document for the badge office. And then also we keep a rich set of history for each change in the system. So let's say Sandra, for example, you can see that that we picked up her record. It was an addition from the Workday application. I can see that history record of the transaction coming in. And there's also a drill down that basically tells me everything that changed. So at this particular time, here's all the data that changed. The field, the prior value was null because it was a new record, what field changed and what the new value is. And we keep this history for basically all the main objects in the system, access cards, access areas, basically gives you the who, what, when, where, and why. Okay. So I'll transition now, if I could, over to more the contractor onboarding scenario. So in terms of contractor onboarding, this is, again, a pain point for many organizations because there may not be an authoritative source for contractors. So if I open up my menu over here, you'll see we have a company management module, and I'll open that in a second. But I also wanted to draw your attention to all of the basic out-of-the-box applications that we have here. So one is Company Manager for onboarding and managing companies, identities, whether those are coming onboarded from HR or third-party system. Training Manager, so if you have a training system, we're able to do an interface to that and pick up the training completions, but we're also able to drive and manage, let's say, training prerequisites. If particular access areas require a training course, we can manage that and auto-provision it. Requests and tasks that are made by people in the system, and the tasks that are approval tasks that are associated with those, we have an admin version of those. Visitor management, audit management, and then some event management. That would be the ability to onboard a large number of people for an event for a short period of time, and then deprovision their access, when the event is completed. And then Site Manager. Site Manager is a module that we have to basically manage the sites, which are the physical spaces, and be able to map those to access areas and rooms and suites, especially occupancy-related details. So those are basically a set of applications that we have. They're part of our core functionality that come, pre-configured out of the box with, typical playbooks and rules. I'm going to come for a moment now to Company Manager, and I mentioned we're going to go through a company contractor onboarding. So I'm going to pull up a company called Maintenance Pro. And with the Company Manager, this can work, again, one of two ways. Either this can be managed directly in VectorFlow, or if you have a company or contract management system like an Ariba corporate system, then we can also have an interface and bring the companies and contracts in from there. But what you'll see here is the ability to create company records, to manage attributes about the company, including maybe sub-organizations. If you've got a contract, maybe this cleaning organization has a subcontract with one part of the business. Another division of the company may have, some other contract. Also roles, and this is important on the company side because, take an example like aviation. There's no single HR system, right? But you have United, Southwest, a number of different companies. The same exist in many businesses where you really need that company point of contact to be responsible for their own contractors and onboarding and offboarding processes. So in this case, we've got Jessica Haley, who is the delegated administrator for Acme Corporation. And what this gives Jessica the ability to do is to log into the system and to basically add identities directly to the system with a very small set of data, perhaps first name, last name, email address, maybe job title or whatever piece of information they have. And then the individual would then get a notification. Let's say she onboarded Peter Parker, for example. So Peter would get an email similar to this, and it basically tells him that he's been onboarded or an access request for access has been submitted for him by Jessica Haley, and he needs to complete his online portal registration. So once he clicks on the link, then he would get a screen something like this. It's mobile friendly. Can pull this up on a web page as well. In this case, I'm showing it in a mobile form factor. So it's basically telling Peter he's got an assignment starting May 31st at Acme Corporation, and he's been onboarded by Jessica Haley at Maintenance Pro. Now, one of the things we allow you to do, let's say your onboarding process includes capturing an identity document, a health questionnaire, maybe you do vehicle registration, if you're giving vehicle permits, that sort of thing. So basically, Peter is able to go through this process in advance. And you can, we support a couple methods for this identity document. Either you can do a manual registration, or I can click on this identity document and use my camera to capture the barcode off the driver's license, for example, or passport, parse the data. So it makes it very quick and easy for the end user. And if you use applications like, Airbnb, they support this kind of functionality, and end users are really used to this, and it's a nice user experience. In this case, let's say our corporate onboarding policy requires that Peter provide his phone and work number. These screens can be customized and configured basically through our user interface designer. So let's say, for example, you don't need a preferred language. You're only operating in the U.S. So you can basically remove this from the screen through our user interface designer. You can also browse a picture. This saves the badge office. This saves the badge office time. This saves the badge office time when the individual comes in. They've already got a photo, and you can put your photo guidelines and whatnot here. Vehicle details, if you capture vehicle details for a permit. Otherwise, again, this screen can be hidden through our user interface designer. The COVID questionnaire, the health screening questionnaire, this is something that's now common for all businesses. Is if somebody is ill, you don't want them, coming to the workplace. So you definitely want them to advise that, up front. And then terms and disclosure. So let's say you've got a organizational privacy statement. You need the individual to sign, or the terms and NDA, for example, or maybe there's some sort of safety document or non-compete or something like that. You need the individual to sign. So that can be provisioned to them in advance, so they can do a read and sign. And then when Peter's completed his registration details, it basically tells them, here's your start date. Here's where you need to go. Your next steps are, complete the required security briefing and pick up your badge. So the site security briefing, one thing we've added here, and this can be taken, on their computer as well, is let's say you have an induction video that each individual is required to watch before they come to work. So you can present that to the individual, and we'll log the completion that they've watched the video automatically. So that covers our contractor management portal. Now let me come to a little bit more back on the self-service side. I mentioned these recommendations and advisories that we're giving the end user. So here's our homepage, our landing page for self-service. And what you see here across the top are some very quick, quick links for common functions that self-service users perform. For example, they need to request access or invite a visitor if you're using our visitor management system. Report their badge lost or stolen, so it stops it in the access control system. So these are common self-service functions that end users. So it's really one click to get to what they need to get to. And then the other section down here you'll see are what we're calling recommendations. So this is where, again, the system is pushing a recommendation to the end user, much like, again, you see on LinkedIn, pushing a recommendation to the end user for an activity or an action that we think they need to take action on. And they can be simple things like the person's badge is expiring, they need to extend their access card, or their delegate is going to expire, things like, expirations that they should pay attention to. And then they can also be more sophisticated, like you're seeing in this first card. Let's say the new employee that we onboarded through HR, if you recall, her name was Sandra Jones. So Sandra Jones was onboarded. Sally Smith happens to be her supervisor. So Sally gets this notification pushed to her that basically Sandra is going to be joining on the 31st. She's a sustainability engineer, and she might need 3 additional accesses. And then all I have to do is, this is a little call to action button. So I click on this call to action button. And what this brings up is a pre-completed, if you will, access request. It's got Sandra's name in it. It's got the 3 areas that the system believes she will need access to. And we give explainability over here, for example, that tells you why this is being recommended, why the recommendations are being pushed. And I can hover over this little card, and I can see that manager and peers have access. And this recommendation is also based on the person's, company and job title. So you get explainability out of why these recommendations, and they could be the same or they could be different based on each access area. And it also provides the start date. This is Sandra's start date. She has no end date, so it doesn't give it an end date or an offboarding timetable. And then why she needs access. This is already pre-completed as it's being recommended because she's a new hire and based on her job function. So one click to open this up. I can review this as a supervisor. It all looks good. And I click submit and then I'm done. So this is the kind of, again, power of bringing, data and recommendations to the system and really, really improve the end user experience as well as the expediency. You can imagine one of the common reasons why access is often denied, at least in our experience, is that, people don't request the right areas. They don't, they over ask. They ask for, everything, and then it gets denied and it goes into a vicious loop. So this is one good way to basically provide some data insights that help that request get processed correctly with one shot. Travel-based access is another example of a recommendation. Let's say we have an integration with the travel system, and Sally herself happens to be traveling in July and she's going to London. So a recommendation would get pushed to her. Now, notice now this is Sally Smith instead of Sandra, her new hire. So this is for Sally herself. The travel dates come pre-populated, as well as the recommendation for what area she needs based on this travel. In this case, it's the London office. And again, she just clicks submit and then that request is completed. And then down here, you'll see also on the self-service side, we're able to provide announcements, perhaps, from a security organization or your corporation, things like, social distancing, what to do if you encounter, an aberrant condition from a security perspective, or, things specific to sites that your employees may need to be aware of from an awareness perspective. And also their to-dos, their audit tasks, access approval tasks, they can quickly see their metrics, as well as get back to any activity that they've performed recently. Let's say I recently submitted a card request and I want to go back and look at the status of that request. So these are at your fingertips. One more thing I'll cover here in self-service relative to advisories. I'm going to go to our audit module just to give you another form of these recommendations, if you will. So here you're seeing audit tasks. The same exists on the access request or card request, other forms of tasks. This happens to be an audit, but it's a good way to demonstrate the power of the recommendations here. So if I'm, let's say, Joe McCravey sees his list of access areas that he has to audit, and I'll click on this one. We'll open this particular audit task. You see at the top level, this recommendation is mixed, right? We don't know whether to approve it or deny it. And typically that means that some of the tasks underneath this are maybe approve, recommend, retain, or revoke, or approve or deny. So you have to really look at the details of this one. And in this case, let's say Joe McCravey has this San Jose main office to audit. And here's the people that have this access area: Evangelina, Tracy. And you can see that the system is making a recommendation to Joe McCravey as to whether or not to retain or revoke. These two, as you can see, are recommend revoke, and the rest look like they're recommend approve. So if I hover over this, Joe gets, again, explainability to say, why are we recommending that this be retained or revoked? In this case, this individual, their manager does not have access to this area. Nobody in their organization has access. They haven't used it in the last 365 days, et cetera. So we're able to give these recommendations that make it very quick and easy for the area owner to spot outliers. You notice the denies are coming to the top. And they also, from a user experience perspective, can perform some bulk operations. Let's say I've reviewed these two. I agree they don't need access. I can revoke them here with one click. And then I can also come back then and, let's say, for the ones that I haven't, these are all retained. I can basically retain these all in one swoop. So out of these 19 areas that I have to audit, I can do this really quickly. And the system also keeps track of, how far along you are. If you perform some of the operations and you come back to the task later, we'll give you what % complete you are. So that's another area. Again, I just wanted to highlight the power of these AI-driven, recommendations in terms of the end user experience and trying to drive down processing times that save money and, frustration for your end users. Okay, we're down to 6 minutes here, so I'm going to cover just very quickly our design studios. And the design or application studios, these are end user tools typically exposed to your security administrator, your IT organization, your business analyst, that allow them to basically make modifications to the system. And you'll see a set of these studios. The data studio is a studio that allows you to basically extend the application. So in this case, I can come to an existing table, let's say watch list table or visitor table, and if there's another field that I want to add, I can add that really quickly. Or I can create a whole new table. Let's say you want to extend the application to include tracking of security equipment, but there's no equipment application. So I can create a table for equipment, and then I can basically put a user interface on that table. I'll give you one quick example here of our user interface design studio. Up just a little bit. So this is our user interface design studio. This is a key part of our low-code platform. I'm just going to pick, let's say, add vehicle as an example. So let's say I've got a form in the system. There's a visitor management form actually for adding vehicles for parking purposes. And I basically pull up this form, and I can see these are all the fields that are on that screen: the plate number, the VIN number, state, color, make, model, etc. So if I want to make a change here, I simply go to, I can add and remove simply by using this trash can, or I can, let's say, edit. I'll edit this plate number, for example, and let's say I want to change this just to plate. I don't need the number, and the placeholder text I can remove, and I want to make this field required. So now you can see that the text itself changed. The asterisk is now there, indicating that it's required. And then with each of our form changes or entity changes, we also do a publication. So we track the history of changes. So who changed this form and when, and what did it change from and to. So this form, once it's published, then would become available to the end user in the application, or it can sit in draft status until I'm ready to publish it. So that's a key part of our application studio. We just have a few minutes here left, but just to show you, we do have these other studios, including Communication Studio, where you can change your own email templates, Report Studio, where you can either add or modify new reports, and our Integration Studio and Playbook Studio. These go together in terms of being able to define workflows, and on the integration side, for you to be able to basically tailor your integrations. And what we have out of the box, because we're physical security domain centric, are all of the standard physical access control systems, AMAG, Linnell, Secure, etc. And those all come pre-configured, but you can, again, through our user interface designer, you can change them. Let's say, for example, I want to map a UDF field down to the PAX that isn't part of the base configuration. Then it's very simple to just add a field and map it directly through our designer. Okay, so I'll close out there. I know we just have a few minutes left for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Tina. Appreciated your presentation. There are a few questions.
Okay.
The first question is, and I'm happy to help, by the way, everyone. This is Kyle Elliott with VectorFlow, co-moderator with Tina. Are there multiple license options that VectorFlow offers?
Yes. For the most part, we offer a subscription license, but depending on your usage, you might only use the Identity and Access Management module, or you might just want the SOC module or the Visitor Management module. So we're able to piece those components together based on your needs.
Thank you. Another question, does VectorFlow require hand-coded customizations?
No, so that's the idea around these design studios. We're trying to get away from, as I'm sure most businesses are, having to, issue professional services orders or get quotes and whatnot to change or customize, and then the customizations don't carry forward. You have to pay for them again. So what we're really trying to do with this design studio is give you, the end user, the power, to change these things yourself, and to maintain version control, that when we give a new release of something, that your customizations or your configurations, really for us, they're configurations and not customizations, carry forward.
And one last question, does the VectorFlow artificial intelligence improve results and improved automation over time?
Yes, that's a great question. So in terms of the data, basically the system continues to learn. The model adjusts itself. Let's say, for example, you do an installation on day one, something like like whether or not you should approve or deny a request is largely based on, on the physical security rules. But then over time, as users interact with the system, the model adjusts and gets better and better, over time. So the models, do retrain themselves with more and more data.
And I think that brings us to our allotted time, and those were the 4 questions that came forward.
Okay, great. Thanks. Great questions, and we appreciate you attending our session, and hopefully we'll get to see you in the near future.